This is the latest update coming through from Eskom, saying due to further breakdown of generating units at Majuba and Anord power stations today, as well as delays in returning units to service at Anord and Tutuga power stations, Eskom regrets to inform the public that stage 2 load shedding will be implemented starting from 10 on Wednesday, the 2nd of June, until 10 in the evening on Friday, the 4th of June. That is the latest. Be prepared. Load shedding is here to stay. For more on that story, I'm joined now by energy expert Chris Yelland. Chris, unfortunately, that is the latest, and it continues seemingly now all the way up until Friday. I mean, these 4 or so power stations that are being mentioned, are you at all surprised that they are battling, breaking down at this particular point? And is there any work that was done at all during this COVID-19 little respite that we got, where there was not a lot of industrial action going on?
Yeah, we're seeing more of the same old story. Intermittent load shedding, interspersed with some periods of no load shedding. But as demand picks up in winter and breakdowns experienced, even though in the face of quite low maintenance at the moment, we're running into load shedding. And this really is the story, not only this winter, but in the forthcoming summer and in for the next 2 to 3 years, because essentially the power plant is getting older. The new power plant is coming on rather slowly. And the procurement programs by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy are not going to provide any respite for the next 2 to 3 years. So in the interim, we're sitting with this load shedding situation. And yeah, you asked the question, have they been doing any work and maintenance? Yes, they have been. I have no doubt about that. But the best that can be hoped for with maintenance is to put the country's supply situation in a kind of a holding pattern and to try and arrest the continued decline of the energy availability factor. But the energy availability factor is not going to suddenly go up from currently around about 60% to 75%, as was indicated in some of the plans of the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. That's the IRP 2019 and the Department of Public Enterprises' Eskom roadmap. All were unrealistically optimistic about an increase in the energy availability factor. I think the best that can be achieved by maintenance is to stabilize the energy availability factor at the current low levels.
We are unable to quickly ramp up our emergency generation reserves at this particular point. What is the solution? What's the best way to assist with that? But also, I mean, experts have been saying, quite honestly, the only way to solve the power crisis now is self-generation.
That's right. I mean, we can cut back on demand and use electricity as sparingly as possible. But, you know, there comes a limit to how much people are prepared to cooperate on this. Yes, certainly, I think people know that if they use electricity unwisely, they are accentuating the possibility of load shedding. But, you know, if it goes on and on and on, continuously asking people to cut back, people get very weary. And eventually the effectiveness of going on TV and calling for load reductions in the form of switching off of a non-essential plant, they really become diminishing returns from this strategy. And I think that's where we are now. And certainly as the cold weather kicks in, people are just switching on their heaters to keep warm, and so that the effectiveness is wearing off. And as you rightly say, actually now, we're in a situation where maintenance is only producing limited response. You know, appeals to the public good are only producing limited response. And the answer is new generation capacity. And in the short term, the only solutions that are possible in the next year are self-generation, where customers start taking ownership of their own energy future and where customers become part of the solution and are not treated as the enemy or you know, something to be taken for granted. But customers have got money that they can put on the table. Business, industry, mines, agriculture, all are pushing hard for self-generation. We've seen calls by industry and business and mining to increase the generation threshold above which you need a license by up to 50 megawatts and more. And for some reason, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, the Minister of Energy, just doesn't seem to get the picture that customers are, in fact, the solution in the short term.
Now, of course, we have at this particular point the whole question of keeping vaccines in cold storage. How does this affect those who are seriously wanting equipment to be working right now, such as oxygen machines and so on and so forth, if the power goes off? Is there a plan for them?
Well, hospitals, for example, and other emergency facilities simply have to make plans to have their own standby generation plant. I mean, you can imagine the essential equipment in a hospital to do emergency operations, ventilating machines. All of these require some kind of backup in order to continue operating, whether it's a backup standby generator, whether it's a backup battery supply, or an uninterruptible UPS for computer equipment. These are all methods of storing electricity so that when there is a mains power failure, things can carry on at least for a certain time. But, when you're talking about 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours of load shedding at a stretch, well, batteries can run flat. Certainly, emergency services, refrigeration equipment can keep things cold for a certain period of time, but ultimately it starts putting various equipment at risk and people's lives at risk when there is no power.
Chris Yelland, appreciate your time and thank you very much for joining us tonight here on In Focus. That is energy expert Chris Yelland. This as now, Eskom has announced that stage 2 load shedding will commence from tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and will last all the way up until 10 in the evening on Friday. Meanwhile,